Okay, today we have to introduce Anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. This is very common instructions in Buddha's teaching. Then we have some statements in Majjhima Nikaya. When a bhikkhu mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it's all great fruit and great benefit. When mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it fulfills the four foundations of mindfulness. So this statement, if we can practice mindfulness of breathing, if we can develop properly, we can also develop or we can also fulfill the four foundations of mindfulness. So it will take time to develop up to that level, but it's possible. Then when the four foundations of mindfulness are developed and cultivated, they fulfill the seven enlightenment fetters. It's also possible to develop seven enlightenment fetters. Actually, it will take time to understand all these seven enlightenment fetters or to develop seven enlightenment fetters. Then the last part, when the seven enlightenment fetters are developed and cultivated, they fulfill true knowledge and liberation. So what does it mean, true knowledge? When we talk about knowledge, that means we have to understand the Four Noble Truths. When we can understand Four Noble Truths clearly, properly, then there will be the liberation. So liberation means we can be free from round of samsara. This is the first part we can find in Majjhima Nikaya, Anapanasati Sutta. So there are many other instructions in many other Nikaya, many other collections, such as Samyutta Nikaya. We may have another instructions. The next slide, maybe. Katam Bhavito, Jabikawe, Anapanasati Samadhi, Katam Bhavikato, Sando Jiva, Banidoja, Asijanagoja, Sukhoja Viharo, Upanu Paneja Babake, Agosale Dhamme, Thanaso, Andara Dhabeti, Upasameti. This is from Samyutta Nikaya, Vesala Sutta. So when we talk about Samyutta Nikaya 3, which means it is a Khandavaka Samyutta. Sorry, Mahavaka Samyutta, sorry. We have Sixth Council version, we have 3 books. The book 1 is Sakadavaka, Nidhanavaka Samyutta. And book 2 is Khandavaka and Saranavaka. Book 3 is Mahavaka. So we can find in the Samyutta Nikaya. So when mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, how because does the concentration by mindfulness of breathing become calm and sublime, unadulterated, blissful abiding, making evil and unwholesome dhammas disappear and cease as soon as they arises. So this is the part we can find in Samyutta Nikaya. Actually, I have already elaborated all these things in Pali, word by word, with the next slides. So when we are going to develop Anapanasati, the next slide. When we are going to practice Anapanasati, we can also have like a sun door. You can remember previous passage. We calm and stabilize. So we can calm down our minds, we can stabilize our minds. Then Benito, sublime and extremely good for meditators. So mindfulness of breathing is a superior and desirable object. It's not like reversiveness meditations. For example, when we are going to practice 32 body parts, we have to learn When you think about body parts, also they are undesirable objects. We have to feel as a repulsive. When we are going to practice asava meditation, we have to go and see the dead body, the corpse. It's also undesirable objects for the meditators. But when we are going to practice anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, just focus on the breath, we cannot say desirable or undesirable. Right? This is the natural things. Not only that, there's nothing to be prepared before meditation, like other subjects such as kasina. For example, when we are going to practice kasina, we have to prepare kasina objects. For example, white color. It's external things. We have to use white cloth or white paper or white plastic, any kind of white color, including like a flower, white flower. We have to use external objects to meditate. So whatever we are going to meditate, we have to bring the one. In the case of anapanasati, no additional activities. Just keep focus on the breath, what we have now. This is different from other meditation subjects. The asajana go unadulterated. So we can also understand another way. We don't need to add anything into breathing meditation. So we have natural breathing. Don't add any other extra things. For example, now we may have breathing meditation. Sometimes it will be warm, it will be cold. Don't think about warm or cold. Don't add anything into it. Just pure breathing is good enough. Don't add anything like a in out anicca, impermanent, in out dukkha, suffering, something like that. We don't need to do any other thing. Just keep knowing breathing. Simple. Asajanago. Unadulterated. That means we don't need to add anything into it. Sukhoja viharo, blissful abiding. So when we are going to practice such as 4-element meditation, we have to use natural characteristics in our body, some natural hardness in our body. Sometimes when we feel excessive hardness, we may feel discomfort. In the case of breathing, it's blissful, just knowing breathing without knowing any other things. Also, Buddha said here, Sukhoja viharo, blissful abiding. Opanopane, babake, akusale dhamme, thana so andara dhapeti upasameti. It blemish immediately makes evil and unwholesome dhammas disappear and cease whenever they arise. So whatever thoughts we arise, we have, then we can bring our mind back to the breathing. It's easier. So if we can focus very well, we can also make all the unwholesome thoughts disappear. As long as we don't accept unwholesome thoughts very long time, it's possible to overcome any kind of thoughts. So these are the quality of breathing meditations. Right? We have already mentioned Sando, Asajanago, here, Sukhoja viharo, right? All are the quality of breathing meditation. All these things come from natural. Then today we have to introduce how to meditate. So when we are going to sit, we also have to know how to sit properly. Mostly we Asian people can sit cross legs. Right? We are used to with that kind of sitting posture. It doesn't matter. So there are some meditator, they may not sit cross legs. They may not be able to sit cross legs because they may have some injury or some pain in their knees and their legs. It's also possible to sit on the chair or high cushion or any stools. It's okay. So when we are going to sit, keeping cross legs, here I remind, 1, keep your legs crosswise. Do not press one leg with another. So we have to fold one leg inside and one leg outside, like this. So don't press, okay? This is also important. If we press our legs, we will feel pain faster. you may feel discomfort faster. If we just cross leg, one leg, folding one leg inside, folding another leg outside, without touching each other, it will be easier to sit. Also, it will be more comfortable. We can also sit very long time. This is also important. Then 2, keep your body and head straight, but do not focus your backbones. So we have to keep our head and body straight. If we don't keep straight, we don't have natural breathing. If we bend a little bit forward or backwards, or if we are swaying, then we don't have natural breathing. So we have to keep our body and head straight. But sometimes we are going to keep straight, so we have to focus our bones in the backbones. If we focus too much, we may feel pain in the backbones very easily. That is why relax your body, although you have to keep your head and body straight. Then 3, close your eyes and mouth, but do not touch or bite your teeth. So if we touch our teeth, if we bite our teeth, then finally we may feel tense in our jaw, and we can also feel tense in our temple. So finally, we will feel tense all over the head. That is why we don't recommend to touch your teeth. There should be space between the teeth. Then relax your body, relax your mind. The another one is keep your hand on the knees or on the lap, joining them together. Do not grasp your hands tightly. So we can join our hands either way, or we can also keep our hand on the knee. As long as you can feel free and comfortable, it's okay. Just trying to relax your body. So if you grasp your hand very tightly, you may feel tense easily. You may feel discomfort. That's why just slightly touch your hands, just join together and relax your body and mind. So here I also use 3 tips. This is also very important for beginners. Relax your body and mind. If you feel something very tension in your body, you cannot sit very long time. Also, when your mind becomes very busy, you cannot meditate very well. That's why the first part, 1, relax your body and mind. If you feel something discomfort in your body, don't hesitate to change your posture. Otherwise, it will get worse. Similarly, mentally, if our mind becomes very busy, think about this and that, making many plans and projects, then our mind will be busy. When our mind becomes very busy, we cannot focus on the breath easily. That's why it's also important to relax body and mind. Then breathe naturally. This is also really very important. If you breathe forcefully, you may feel tense around your nostril. You may also feel tense around your temple. Finally, you may feel tense all over the body. So breathing just go from abdomen to the nose, right? That's why you may feel tense. So you must breathe naturally. Then one more thing. Sometimes when I say breathe naturally, focus on the natural breath, they also ask, Bhante, what is it? Natural breath. So natural breath means as we are breathing now, we have to breathe in, breathe out when we are meditating. So we just need only one more thing, is mindfulness. In our daily life, when we are breathing, we don't have mindfulness. We just breathe and breathe out normally. But when we are meditating, only one thing additional, that is mindfulness. We have to know breathing naturally, and we also have to know it in or out. So sometimes we don't breathe naturally, we may control the breathing. If we control breathing too much, we may feel suffocating and chest pain. If you feel suffocating and chest pain, that means you are controlling. If you feel something discomfort, then you have to relax a little bit more. After that, you can restart, focus on the breath. Then 3, put natural effort. Okay, which means, what does it mean, natural effort? So if we put very strong efforts or excessive efforts, we cannot maintain very long time. Almost all the new meditators, when they have a short time to meditate, for example, now here we have 10 days retreat, right? Within 10 days, we wish to develop very fast. We may put extra efforts. If we put extra efforts or too much efforts to know breathing clearer and clearer, your mind becomes busy. Because you have to put more mental energy to know it. This is also mental effort. In Pali, we call Cetasika Viriya. If we put more mental effort, mind becomes busy, body also discomfort. Then the biggest problem is the more we make efforts, the more restlessness arises. The stronger our efforts, the stronger restlessness. That is why we have to put natural effort. Natural effort means as long as we can know breathing, don't put any extra effort. Don't make it clearer, stronger, deeper. If we make it stronger and stronger, sure, within a few minutes, we can have very deep concentration. But you cannot maintain more than 20 minutes. It doesn't mean you can focus 20 minutes continuously. So within 20 minutes, sometimes your concentration will become very high. You cannot maintain well, drop down to 0. Then come up again. You can develop faster. Then, sure, you cannot maintain well, 0 again. Then it will happen many times within 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, you become exhausted. No more energy to continue meditating. Just sitting and thinking. So there are many meditators. I have very good quality, 20 minutes, for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, I cannot focus well. I realize the meditator has made very strong efforts. Especially, he has already used all his mental energy for 20 minutes. After that, no more mind power to continue meditating. That is why it's also important to put natural efforts. Just keep knowing natural breathing with natural efforts without struggling. If we can keep knowing breathing normally, then we can develop naturally. We can also maintain better. If we put very strong efforts, we cannot maintain well, then we become very tired. After that, no more willingness to meditate. So feel free, more maintenance, right? Okay, the next one. So we have some recommendations for meditators, so who have wandering thoughts. As a new meditator, you may have many wandering thoughts. It's normal. When we have very short thoughts, just bring mind to the breath. But sometimes we have very, very long thoughts, out of control. Then we can do counting method. So we can know in and out. After that, count 1. In, out, 2. In, out, 3, up to 8. We can count 1 to 8 again and again, as long as we have thoughts. When we don't have wandering thoughts, we can stop counting, just bring our mind back to the breath naturally. So one more thing, without knowing the breathing, don't count also. The number is not very important. To know the breathing is more important in meditation. Then again, pay. So for the beginners, mostly the first 3 days is a very big challenge for the new meditators. You may feel pain a lot. It's normal. So after 3 days, we will feel a little bit better. So whenever we feel pain, we can change our posture. It doesn't mean we have to sit continuously without changing, without moving. It's so terrible for new meditators. So when we feel something discomfort, or when we feel too much pain, unpleasant, discomfort, it is allowable to change the posture. Then keep knowing breathing. When we are going to change, we must change slowly and quietly, without making any noise or without any disturbance to any meditators around us. This is also important. So another thing is, there can be many other sensations or many other feelings. So whatever condition we have, or whenever, we can keep knowing the breathing. For example, when we are going to stand up, we can also close our eyes and stand up, keep focus on the breath. Sometimes we cannot sit very long time. We feel pain too much. If you feel pain too much after sitting for maybe 1 hour or 45 minutes, then you can stand up, keep your eye closed, and focus on the breath. This is also possible. Similarly, walking. When we are going to walk, we can also close our eyes before walking, then focus on the breath. When we can know the breath clearly, we can slightly open our eyes, keep focus on the breath. We can move slower than normal walking. It doesn't mean you have to walk very slowly. As long as you can walk slower than normal sitting, normal walking, you can keep knowing the breathing. It's good enough. Similarly, lying down. Before you are going to sleep, you can lie down, close your eyes, focus on the breath. This is also possible. Mostly lying down posture is very comfortable, too much relaxing, right? As soon as you cannot balance your concentration and effort, you will fall asleep. This is the problem of lying down posture, right? So for about sitting, standing, and walking, mostly when we are walking and standing, we have to put extra effort to balance our body. Our concentration quality will be not that strong as sitting. When we are sitting, we can balance well. It will be stronger concentration, less effort. So anyway, whatever we are, or whenever situation or whatever situations, or whenever, we can keep knowing the breathing everywhere. As long as we can know breathing, we are meditating. But sometimes people think when they come to meditation center, they can meditate. Mostly when they come to Phao Toya, I also remind, for example, when Singaporeans come to Phao, then when they are going to leave, I will remind them, okay, bring Dhamma to Singapore. This Dhamma does not belong to Phao Toya, it belongs to you. You can bring to Singapore. When Vietnamese come to Phao, I will remind them, bring meditation to Vietnam. You can do in Vietnam by yourself. It does not belong to me, it just belongs to you. It belongs to everybody. So similarly, here we have to understand, as long as we have breathing, we can meditate anywhere. The main thing is to know breathing. Right? Okay, next one. Then here we have to know the focusing points. Where to focus on. So here I just mentioned 3 parts at the tip of the nose. We can also know breathing. Then on the upper lip, between nose and lip, right? Because nostril. So anywhere around the nostril. So different people may have different obvious touching points. So here I have to remind one more thing. When we go and study Visuddhimagga, actually we also have already talked about Anapanasati and Visuddhimagga. We have 3 themes in Anapanasati. In breath, the out breath, and touching points. As long as we can know one of these 3, it's okay. It doesn't mean we have to know 3 of them. As long as we can know one of them is enough. Because when we are breathing in, we don't have out breath, right? When we are breathing out, no in breath. Similarly, for some meditators, if they emphasize focus on touching point too much, they may feel tension. This is also one of the impediments or impurity. That is why anywhere you feel breathing around your nostril, you can know breathing. Breathing in or breathing out. So sometimes for a beginner, it is unavoidable to know the touching point. Okay, you can also know the touching point. You can also know the touching sensation. Sometimes we can know breathing through the sensation. This is also okay. So if we can know breathing without sensation, it's much better. Gradually, our breath becomes very subtle. Now we cannot know sensation too much. We cannot know breathing in, breathing out. Sometimes we just know the breathing. We don't know in, out. This is also okay. So it's changeable. The more we focus on the breathing, it will be the subtler breath it becomes, then it will be a little bit difficult for us. Is it in breath or out breath? Is it touching points or no touching points? So briefly, as long as we can know breathing, is it good enough? Okay, next one. So now here I also mention don't. In reality, I have already talked about impurity of anapanasati in Visuddhimagga class. But here I just summarize all these things. So do not follow inside or outside your body. This is the first thing. When we are focused on the breath, don't follow inside your nose or inside your body. And don't follow outside your body also. So we have some explanation in Visuddhimagga. Similar thing can be found in Buddhisamhita and also Samanapasadika commentary about breathing system. They mention the beginning of in-breath is a nostril, the middle is a chest, then is a navel. The beginning of out-breath is a navel, the middle is a chest, the end of the out-breath is nostril. It mentioned like that. It just the natural way of arising of breathing. It doesn't mean we have to focus whole breath from nostril to abdomen. So if we have very big objects, very big focusing points, our mind is not very sharp and strong. So we must have one-pointedness. In Bali, we call ekaggata. One-pointedness means we have to know one thing, one object all the time. This is called one-pointedness. This is also called concentration, samadhi, in Pali. So when we talk about Noble Eightfold Path, you may have known Samma Samadhi, right concentration. So when we have one-pointedness, we can have right concentration. If we don't have one-pointedness, we don't have right concentration. This is also important. That's why we don't recommend to follow breathing in breath or the out breath. We don't recommend to follow inside body or outside the body. So we have to know somewhere around nostril all the time. Then 2, don't focus on any natural or individual characteristics, sabhava lakkhana, such as heat, cold, hardness, and softness. So sometimes we may feel cold or heat in our breathing. Don't follow it. Don't think about it. It's not very important. To know the breathing is more important. Sometimes we also know like a hardness, roughness, heaviness, lightness, many other natural characteristics. Then if we follow like this, we are not focused on the breathing. Then we cannot develop easily. It will be very messy and very complicated. Then 3, don't focus on any general characteristics such as impermanence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, and non-self anatta. Sometimes they are meditators, they are very used to be with vipassana, right? The modern society, there are many vipassana centers. So they may think about in out breath, in out anicca, in out dukkha, in out anatta like that. We don't recommend that kind of system. Just keep knowing breathing as a concept. So how can we say concept? Actually, in the sense of ultimate reality, we don't have short and long breaths, right? We don't have short and long. Short and long come from comparison, comparative. If we can compare two things, we can say short and long. It's not always truth. For example, laptop and then cup. The cup is shorter than laptop. Microphone and laptop. If we raise up, microphone will be higher, right? So if we can compare two different things, they can be short and long. It's not all the time truth. It depends on which are to be compared. So now in the sense of anapanasati is concept, because we talk about short and long. As long as we don't know ultimate reality, we don't need to talk about anicca dukkha anatta. We don't need to think about anicca dukkha anatta. Just keep knowing natural way, only the breathing. Then do not focus on any shape or color. Sometimes you may feel some shape or some appearance or some color. Whatever thing you see, just bring your mind back to the breath. So if we follow many different images, colors, shapes, appearance, it will be endless. Another thing is when our perception change, all these things will change very quickly. It makes mind distracted. That is why we don't recommend to follow any shape, any color, or any appearance, or any natural things, any phenomena. Just keep knowing the breathing naturally. But the next one. Do not emphasize focus on the touching sensation of skin. Actually, I have already reminded this one before. Anyway, so if we emphasize focus on touching sensation too much, sometimes we may feel tense. Sometimes we may follow the breathing. So if we can know the breathing normally, so as I have mentioned before, for the beginners, we cannot avoid knowing the touching sensation and breathing. It doesn't matter. Gradually, when our breath becomes very subtle, sometimes we will know in our breath, sometimes we don't know in or out, we just know the breathing. Sometimes we just know the touching point or touching sensation, like something moving around the nostril. This is also okay. Then 6, do not count your breath more than 10 or less than 5. So that means when we are going to do counting breathing, we can count at least up to 5, at most 10. No more than 10, less than 5. This is also important. Otherwise, we will emphasize on number. Right? Number is not very important. To know breathing is more important than to know the number. 7, do not follow any pleasant or unpleasant feeling. This is also very important. I have already talked about difficulty in the very beginning, right? For 3 days, you may feel many discomforts, pain, distraction, many difficulties for the first 3 days. After 3 days, then you may feel a bit better. Maybe around 7 or 8 days, maybe you may have a little bit joint or rupture. Sometimes very luxurious. When we follow the rupture, joy, tranquility, sure, it's very, very precious. Very pleasant. When we follow all these kind of things, our effort becomes weaker and weaker. Finally, we fall into like unconscious states. Bhavanga mind state. In Buddhist way, we say Bhavanga mind. Bhavanga mind means like unconscious state. You know an object, but you don't know what object you are knowing. You cannot identify what kind of object you know. Your mind is blended. So when we have this kind of state, that means you have very weak efforts. You follow many pleasant things. So here we don't recommend to follow any rapture, joy, tranquility, bliss, or any good things or pleasant things when you experience in meditation. If we follow all these great experiences, then our effort will become weaker. We cannot balance between effort and concentration. So to be able to balance effort and concentration, we have to keep knowing the breathing. Especially when you have too much pleasant feeling or too much comfort or tranquility, you have to remind yourself to keep knowing the breathing. After a few seconds or after a few minutes, remind to keep knowing the breathing. It will be easier to overcome the problem. Otherwise, many of meditators will stop there because it's very pleasant. Majority of meditators stop there. They cannot develop more than that because this is very luxurious, very pleasant, very fine. Then there are some meditators, they think it's nirvana. very, very terrible. Yeah? When they have very strong tranquility, this is also really, very peaceful. They think they have attained some higher level. But in reality, this is very basics. Again, on the next one. So now here we also say there are some meditators, they also ask, how can we know that we are developing, we are improving our meditation? So when you can know the breathing continuously and effortlessly without any thoughts, that means you are developing, you are improving. So what does it mean effortlessly? Sometimes you can know the breathing and breathing out naturally without making any efforts. In the very beginning, you have to struggle. You have to apply your mind to the objects in and out again and again. Gradually, when you become skillful, you don't need to apply purposely. Your mind will naturally know it effortlessly. If you can know like this, harmoniously, effortlessly, continuously, longer and longer, you can develop. As I have mentioned before, at the time you may also have rapture and joy. Don't follow it. If you can overcome rapture and joy, you can improve faster. Okay, now 2. When you feel free and comfort, sometimes you know the breathing, you also feel free and comfort. That means you are improving. So in the very beginning, pain, restlessness, many disturbances. Gradually, your mind will become free, or you can also know the breathing normally. Then this means improvement. Then when you feel joy and rapture. So okay, now I have to say the sign of joy. And many of meditators may have that kind of experiences. So that one is sometimes you may feel like a floating. This is also a kind of joy. Sound like a swaying. You feel swaying, but when you open your eyes, your body is normal, stable. Sometimes you may feel you are sinking, flying. You may have many different experiences. That means this the nature of rapture. We call in Bali piti. Piti means rapture or joy. So when you feel rapture and joy, don't follow it. Keep knowing breathing. Also, sometimes it becomes in the very beginning of rapture and joy, it's very disturbance. You may feel like your body is swaying, sometimes sinking, sometimes like running in high speed. You may feel many different things. Although you are sitting still, but you feel many different things. This is very gross rapture. Whatever thing you feel, don't follow it. Just keep knowing breathing. Many people think this is also some kind of inside knowledge. Not really inside knowledge. This is natural. It happened to many meditators naturally. So this is the nature of rapture. Okay, sometimes you may feel like like a wave, up and down. Your body is like a flying, floating, up and down, many different ways. Whatever thing happen, don't follow it. Okay, so this means your concentration a little bit better. That's when you feel joy and rapture. Then 4, when you can see the light, it's very obvious when you can see the light. This is improvement. Okay, now one more thing. It's really interesting, right? When we start seeing the light, it's really interesting. Our mind will incline to it. When our mind go to see the light, we will see more, right? Then it will disappear. So although you see the light or the light appear in front of your face or anywhere in your body, don't follow it. If you follow it, it will disappear. Keep knowing the breathing all the time. Okay, one more thing here. When you start seeing the lights, we have to think about our focusing conditions. We have a habit of seeing things with our eyes. In the case of breathing, if we have that kind of habit, try to see the breath with our eyes, then when we start seeing the light, it will be very big distractions. That means the light will strike to the eyes, directly come to the eyes, then it will pass into tear. That is why we don't recommend to use eyes to see the breath. We just recommend the meditators to know the breathing with our mind. With your mind is easier. So when seeing the light is more important, to use your mind to know the breath. Otherwise, it will be very big disturbance. You cannot improve easily. Sometimes irritations. Sometimes you will close your eyes very tightly, it will get worse. So we cannot avoid seeing the light. Also, you may have some of the meditation may have experience when we see the light, sometimes may say, try to make it disappear. It's almost impossible. If we neglect, we have to use more mind power to neglect. So anyway, whatever thing you see, keep knowing the breathing, right? This is also important. Number 5, when you see the nimitta. So we may have many different types of nimittas. We have already explained in Visuddhimagga class. It can be, okay, briefly we can understand, it can be different shape, different color, different appearance, according to our perceptions. Although it mentioned Visuddhimagga, I think it mentioned maybe around 20 or something like that. That is just the general list. It's just general. Then we can also have more than that, many other shape, many other colors, according to our perceptions. Because we have different environments. We grow up in different environments. We have different perceptions. So we may see different nimittas. So in Knowing Seeing or Power Shadow books, many of our shadow books will mention, for example, Bodhikama nimitta is like a gray color, not very bright, but it's just general. Mostly we see like this, that's why it just mentioned general. Actually, there are many other types. For example, when we have, like for example, orange color, for example, it can be orange color, but not very bright orange, a little bit dim orange. It can be like a red color, like a ruby, for example. It can be not very, it cannot be very bright in the very beginning. This is called Bodhikama nimitta. Later, it can be a little bit brighter. For example, white color, it can be a little bit whiter, really pure white. Orange, also it can be pure orange. Red can be pure red. Then this can be Ukha nimitta. When we talk about Bodhipagga nimitta, it can be very bright. We have mentioned it depends on our perception, right? It can be very bright light, like the moon, like the sun, like the star. It was very bright. We can say this is the Bodhipagga nimitta. This is the strongest level. Okay, now we have to move, right? What time? Up to 10 o'clock, right? Right? Okay, so we have to move next one, right? Next one. Next one. Okay. Next one. Okay, done. Skill. When we start seeing the nimitta, these are the skill we need. So knowing how to focus on the breath, we call Karana Kosana. Skill in knowing or focusing on the breath. So we also have some flow or the sequence or the process. Sometimes when we have very strong tranquility, right? As soon as our mind inclined to tranquility, we can regain that tranquility. Similarly, in the case of nimitta, when we become very skillful, as soon as our mind inclined to nimitta, we can see the nimitta. So in the very beginning, we have to focus on the breath. We can see the light within a few seconds. Then our mind can go to the nimitta within a few minutes. This is also possible. Otherwise, knowing how to maintain focusing on the breath or on the nimitta, this is also called skill. So different people may have different experiences. As long as you can maintain longer and deeper, it's good enough. It does not come from teacher. It just comes from experience. Then also knowing how to prolong or improve bhavana. Sometimes we have to develop. We have to know how to develop our nimitta, our concentration. Especially when we start seeing the nimitta, we recommend to balance controlling faculties. If we cannot balance controlling faculties, we cannot maintain well, we may fall into Vanga states. If we can maintain very well, that means we can develop or we can balance controlling faculties. This is also really very important. Okay, today I think this is the first part, right? Just introduction to Anapanasati. Anyway, as long as you know the breathing, is good enough. If we make it short, only two things in Anapanasati. The first one, you must know the breathing. Then, when you can see the nimitta, you must know the nimitta. So, I have said only two things, right? When we are going to practice Anapanasati, focus on the breathing or focus on the nimitta. Only two things. Don't focus on any other object. Don't follow any other phenomena. It will be easier for improvement. Okay? So, may you all be able to practice the Buddha's teaching, and may you all be able to realize the final cessation and no suffering. So,
Etawata Amhehi
Sambadam Punya Sambadam
Sampadam Punya Sampadam
Sabbe Deva Numodandu
Sabbe Deva Anumodantu
Sabbe Buddha Numodandu
Sabbe Buddha Anumodantu
Sabbe Saddha Numodandu
Sabbe Sata Anumodantu
Sabba Sambadi Siddhiya
Sabba Sampati Siddhiya
Idame Nyadinam Hodu
Idame Natiyam Hotu
Sukhita Hondu Nyadayo
Sukhita Hontu Natayo
Idame Nyadinam Hodu
Idame Natiyam Hotu
Sukhita Hondu Nyadayo
Sukhita Hontu Natayo
Idame Nyadinam Hodu
Idame Natiyam Hotu
Sukhita Hondu Nyadayo
Sukhita Hontu Natayo
Idame Bunyam
Idame Punya
Asavakaya Waham Hodu
Asavakaya Wahan Hotu
Idame Bunyam
Idame Punya
Nibbana Sabajayo Hodu
Nibbana Sapajayo Hotu
Mama Bunya Bhagam
Mama Punya Bhaga
Sabba Sadanam
Sabba Satana
Bhajemi
Bhajemi
Te Sabbe
Te Sabe
Me Samam
Me Sama
Punya Bhagam
Punya Bhaga
Lavandu
Labantu
Sa
Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu